on your business with Accent nominees. Happy new month. I trust the month is starting on a very great note. So we started a series 2 weeks ago, your business and the law. So last week we talked about what you need to know about contracts, and one of the highlights of what we discussed is that I said that for every business owner out there, it is you do yourself a great deal if you have a contract with everyone that you bring on board your business, or everyone who services your business, or anyone you have any business dealings with. And I kind of gave an assignment last week. I suggested that we just check our business, look at people who render services to you, and see if you have any detailed agreements that governs that transaction. So if you missed out on what we discussed last week, you can just check our video. It's still on this same page, Accent Nominees on Facebook, and you check us out, Law Accent, on YouTube. So what we be discussing this afternoon. So we are still on your business and the law. So this afternoon we'll be taking it further from what we discussed last week. We are still talking about contract. Last week we talked about what you need to know about law of contracts. So this afternoon we're looking at a contractual agreement, or a contractual document, one contract that you need to sign with people as a business owner in your business activities, your daily activities. So this afternoon we'll be talking about non-disclosure agreements. So like I said last week, a contract is an agreement between two or more people with an understanding that once it is signed, it is going to be legally binding on both parties. So once an agreement is signed, it is expected that there's this intention to create legal relations in law. That is to say that where there is a breach of the agreement, I can file an action in court to either enforce it, or to stop you from doing something, or to ask the court to make an order that you should do something. But an agreement once signed, there is an intention that it is valid and it should be enforceable. So when we talk about non-disclosure agreements, what do we mean? So for every business owners, you agree with me that during the course of your business transactions or dealings with third parties, there will be a situation, or there are situations that demands that you disclose some information. And this information, if you are to critically look at it, they are confidential information that you would not have ordinarily discussed with people, if not because you are about to have some dealings or a dealing with them. So let's say, for example, you want to engage the service of a web designer or a mobile app designer. Some of these things that you'll be discussing, they are your intellectual properties. They are confidential information that should be kept just with you or your business partners. But because you need this person to provide service to you, you need to engage the service of this person, you need this person to get something done for you, you have to disclose some information which are confidential information. So in what way can you protect your business and also protect yourself, such that after disclosing this information to this third party who is servicing your business, or who you need to do business with, this person is not taking advantage of this business information. The person is not using it either for himself or giving it out to third parties. So one of the ways in which you can safely deal with people, one of the ways in which you can keep your business information confidential or protected, is by signing a non-disclosure agreement. So what is a non-disclosure agreement? It is just an agreement, a document signed between, or entered into between, a business owner and a service provider, or it can be between business owners to partners or investors. So it's just an agreement you sign with anyone you are disclosing information to, and it can be between a company and employees. So if you have employees in your business and you know that during the course of their service to the company, or during the course of their employment, they will be privileged to get some confidential information, then you should have a non-disclosure agreement such that they are under a duty not to disclose this information, this business information, with third party or they're also under an obligation not to use this information for their own and personal needs to, or personal business, or anything that they want to use it for, aside what you've given, or aside the purpose of disclosing that information to them. So having a non-disclosure agreement is one way to protect the secrecy of your business information and your trade secrets, such that even though these people, you're disclosing this to them, it's no longer a confidential information again, because now they are aware of this information, they are aware of these facts. But now that you've disclosed it to them, one of the ways in which you can protect your business is by entering into a non-disclosure agreement. So with that background of what a non-disclosure agreement is about, so a non-disclosure agreement is just a document that is entered into between yourself and the service provider, or your business partner, or an investor coming on board, or your employee, or anybody that you are going to be giving that information to. So a non-disclosure agreement is just that document that clearly what the terms of disclosure is, what are the remedies that are available to you, is there a timeline that binds people, or are there exceptions? Fine, if you are saying that you are disclosing this information to me, and I have a duty to keep this information confidential, is there a situation or are there circumstances that will exempt me from disclosing it to third parties? And when I disclose it to third parties, can you still come to me to say, oh, there's a breach of contract, I had this agreement with you that you're not going to tell this person, or you're not going to tell third parties, or you're not going to disclose this information to third parties, but now you've done so, then you are liable for damages and all. So are there situations where even when you make these disclosures, such the receiving party is exempted? So these are things that we'll just discuss this afternoon. So on a non-disclosure agreement, are there things that you need to have in your non-disclosure agreement? What should your non-disclosure agreement contain? And talking about contract, what is applicable to a particular agreement is not what you see in another agreement, even though it's still the same scenario. So your non-disclosure agreement, when you're having non-disclosure agreements with people in your business or third parties, you should ensure that this agreement covers, like it's a tailor-made agreement. So this is why I wouldn't advise that you just go out there to just copy and paste things without ensuring that what the agreement you are executing, without ensuring that it covers for the specific details of your business. So it's not just enough to go out there, because I understand there are lots of websites, there are lots of platforms where you can just get drafts of agreements, and you can just put it down in your own words and just have it signed. But before you do this, or if you have to, just ensure that this agreement is a tailor-made agreement. And that's why you should not just undo your legal matters yourself. Engage the service of a lawyer to draft this agreement for you. So don't just feel that, oh, I've subscribed to a particular platform or a portal, I've downloaded documents, you just put your business name or your company's name, you put the other party's name, then you affix signatures and all. So you need to be sure that your non-disclosure agreement covers the field, like everything. So your non-disclosure agreement should contain some clauses, and these clauses, like I said, they have to be tailor-made, they have to be specific and direct to your line of business. Because what you will see in a non-disclosure agreement for a particular service or between employers and employees might not be the same content for service providers and the likes. So you need to be sure that any non-disclosure agreement you are signing or you are executing or you are giving to people out there covers all the fits, protects your business, and protects it accurately. So what situations might warrant that you use a non-disclosure agreement? So it might be when you want to present an invention. Like I said, it's a document that can be entered into between business partners and investors. So let's say you have an invention and you need investors to help you push this project, and this demands that you do a presentation to these investors. So if you find yourself in this situation where you need to present an invention, or you need to present an idea, you need to just do a presentation on a project that you want to embark on in your business. You want to sell an idea to a potential investor or a partner or distributor, or anyone you want to just share your business idea with or your invention. You need to have a non-disclosure agreement with such person. Also, if you want to engage services of marketers or financial personnel, or people that you need to disclose your business secrets, like your trade secrets. So let's say you're engaging the services of a marketer, a brand influencer, and the likes. And these are people that you know that it will demand that you disclose some things about your business. Maybe you may need to talk about your trade secrets, or you may need to talk about some formulas and the likes. So if you are discussing with these people, you should have a non-disclosure agreement with such a person. Also, if you are discussing with someone who you want to you are selling a product to that person, you want to introduce a new product, a new technology, and this is an age where someone invents an idea, you have an idea, and you have tech enabled people who are into the tech space, and you want to sell this idea to them. So in the process of discussion, because it is not just the day you start that conversation that you conclude it. So if you have a product you want to push out there, and you need technology inclined people to help you drive the product and design it and all of that, then you need to have a non-disclosure agreement with such people. And it is this, talking about non-disclosure agreement, it is something that business owners who understand this concept, they've really been able to make good use of it. And it won't even surprise you that even lawyers sign non-disclosure agreements with their clients, because if you have a client who is tech driven and is someone who has projects that can pass for the test of being registered as a patent, trademark, designs, and the likes, even as lawyers, we sign non-disclosure agreement to the extent that you don't divulge such information to third parties, because you need to protect your idea. So you can't say, oh, I'm dealing with a lawyer, I'm not going to there's not going to be any breach and the like. So you need to protect your business on all fronts. So talking about engaging service providers in your business too, if you are to receive services from people, someone is coming to service your company, the person is going to be your business space for a while, or the person is going to have access to some business details, then you should have a non-disclosure agreement between your company and this service provider. Another situation where you will require that you have a non-disclosure agreement is where you engage services of people, like you employ people in your business. So you have employees in the business, and during the course of their employment, these are people that will be privy to some business information. They will have access to some of your clients' details. They will have access to some of your product. They will have access to some ways, like how you get things done in your business. It might even be your operation manual, and like how you operate within your business environment, such that this is something that it's your unique operation system. So you should have a non-disclosure agreement with your employees to the extent that these people are employees in your business. So if they are saying, okay, I work with you, I'm not allowed to engage in other business or engage in other employment. So some contracts of employment have a non-compete agreement, or agreement to the extent that while you are in my service, you are in the service of Accent Nominees, for example, you are in the service of Accent Nominees, you should not work for any other company, or any company that is into the same services with Accent Nominees, or you should not even work with any company at all. So if you have, let's say you have a non-compete clause, in contract of employment, and the employee is like, okay, well, I have a duty not to engage in a similar service, I won't do that, but now have some confidential information. If I can't use it, another person should be able to use it. So having a non-disclosure agreement binds the employees from disclosing such information. Oh, what happens within your office space, person is not disclosing it to, let's say, your rival businesses or businesses that may need that information. So the employee is under a duty to keep any information during the course of their job strictly within the four walls of the business. And it is something that you can even have your non-disclosure agreement to be such that it binds them even after leaving your employment. And if it's for an investor, whether or not the business pulls through, the person is has a duty to keep that information confidential. If you're engaging the service of a technology expert, that person has a duty to retain that information to himself and not disclose it to third parties. So talking about non-disclosure agreements, sometimes non-disclosure agreements can be in two forms. Can either be mutual, that is when you say it is mutual, I give you information, you give me information in return. So both of us are disclosing information, or we are disclosing confidential facts. So if the situation is just such that both receiving party and the disclosing party will be like both of them will be disclosing information to that extent, then you should have it as a mutual non-disclosure agreement. But if it is such that it's only one party that is going to be disclosing information or is going to be disclosing facts all through, then that kind of non-disclosure agreement is a non-mutual non-disclosure agreement. So it binds one party alone. So what are the key elements now that you should have in your non-disclosure agreement? So if you are saying you want to have a non-disclosure agreement, what should you see? What should your non-disclosure agreement contain? Even if you have other things missing now, what are the major ingredients of a non-disclosure agreement? It's just like if you talk about bread making, and we all know what is happening in the bakery industry now. So one very key element or one very key factor when you want to bake bread or you want to bake a cake or any products in that class, one key element is flour. So if you don't have flour, you don't have butter, then you're not baking any bread or you're not baking any cake. Fine, you might have you might decide to either use sugar or just reduce the quantity and all, but then if you don't have flour to start with, you can't say you want to bake a bread. So that is the same way your non-disclosure agreement is. There are some clauses that you may want to waive or you may not easily dwell on it, but there are some clauses in your non-disclosure agreement that you should have, and when you have, it's not just to just put it there and just have it in one line and all, but it should be a detailed clause in your non-disclosure agreement. So one of it is that you should be able, your non-disclosure agreement should start by identifying the parties that are involved. Because if you check our last video last week when we talked about contract, a contract is between two people. So you should be able to know that, oh, this non-disclosure agreement, these are the people that it binds. It is between this business and this person, or this business and this business, because it can also be between two business entities. So it's not just between a business and humans, like natural humans. So it can be between two business entities. So you should be able to identify parties that agreement binds, so that when there's a default, someone can say, oh, you are the one I had this understanding with, you've breached it. So you should be able to clearly spell out, oh, who is in default, who are the parties to this agreement, because someone who is not a party to an agreement cannot enforce it. Neither can the person benefit from it, except in some very with some exceptions. But generally, when it comes to non-disclosure agreement, you should be able to identify the parties that agreement bind. Then another thing that you should have in your non-disclosure agreement is definition of what is deemed to be confidential. And this is like the flour, just like when you want to bake bread, this is like the flour in in a non-disclosure agreement. So you should be able to say what is confidential. So if you have a non-disclosure agreement that does not talk about what amounts to confidential information, then it's like you're just leaving it open-ended, and it is not safe for you as a business owner, and it is also not safe for the receiving party, because anybody can come to say, oh, this one is the confidential part, this is not what is confidential, this one is not confidential, this is confidential. So to save you the stress of, oh, this information is confidential, this one is not confidential, have your documents, like, let it be very clear to what amounts to confidential information. We've seen clauses that says that confidential information is any information that is given to you, as long as it is from me, like the business owner, to, let's say, the service provider. As long as that information is given to me, is given to you by my business, it is confidential. So you can't say this particular one, there's no confidentiality in this. So if you want to look at what is confidential, you should look at the scope of the agreement. So it is this part that talks about, oh, this information is confidential, this one is not, and all. So your non-disclosure agreement should clearly state the information that will be deemed confidential. Then another thing is that your non-disclosure agreement also should talk about the scope of the confidentiality. So talking about this scope, it can mean that what does it cover? Is it a particular trade secret, or is it about some information within the business environment and all? So your non-disclosure agreement should cover the scope. So it can be that, oh, is it to bind this transaction? Is it for a particular transaction, or is it just a general thing, or is it something that is it information that should not go beyond the particular sphere? So some agreement can say that, oh, you can disclose with people that will work with you. So let's say you're engaging the service of a person, someone, and that person is also going to engage the service of another person. So are you saying that, is it such that this agreement I'm signing, it is to the extent that I can disclose to people that will work with me on that particular project, or it is such that it is just limited to me, or like I don't have a duty to disclose it to anyone at all? So if the agreement permits you to, oh, during the course of your work, during the course of executing the project which you've been contracted to do, you can disclose it to people to the extent that they only use it for that particular project, or it is such that the information is strictly confidential to you. So you can't even disclose it to third parties under the guise of, oh, they're helping me to get this job done. So another thing is your confidentiality agreement. Now this part of a confidentiality agreement, it protects the recipient, like the person receiving the agreement. So your confidentiality agreement should also include exclusions, such that when an information is disclosed, the other party is free from any liability. So if and this situation or these instances usually arise where the information that you've given to this person is already something that is known to the recipient. So if it's something I know before that I signed that non-disclosure agreement, then you can't say that I've reached the understanding in the non-disclosure agreement, because even if it's an information that is within the public space, like it's already in the public and all, it's really no news, or there's really no confidential thing about it. It's just like you saying, oh, I bake bread and one of the things I use is flour. Everyone knows that flour is an ingredient of bread, so that's an information within the public knowledge. Or if there are information that or if there are situations that demands that, even though the person has signed a non-disclosure agreement, but there is an obligation to disclose that agreement, then the person is exempted. So what are instances where someone can be under a duty? So let's say there is an investigation, a police investigation going on a particular transaction. You can't say you've signed non-disclosure agreements, then because of that you keep that information to yourself. You all know what is going to be the consequence if an agency of the state is saying you should disclose something and you don't want to. Then we all know the aftermath. What can be that? You can be convicted for that. Can be charged. It can be termed that you are trying to aid and abet, or you are trying to conspire with someone to do something very illegal. So if the receiving party is under an obligation like this, an obligation of an agency of the government to disclose, then this non-disclosure agreement is going to be like suspended. So another thing that you should have in your non-disclosure agreement, like very important, is that your non-disclosure agreement should talk about remedies that are available in case of it. Because the essence of having that agreement is to have a guarantee and assurance that your information is going to be protected and it's going to be secured. So your non-disclosure agreement therefore should have clauses to buttress the fact that where there is a default in what has been signed, then you should be able to approach the law court, or you are entitled to some remedies. So it can be that you are entitled to damages like monetary damages, monetary compensation, and your non-disclosure agreement can also include that you have a right to file an action in court to seek for an injunction to stop someone from continued disclosure of that information, or to stop the person from using the information. So you should have a right to file an action in court to enforce the agreement based on breach of what has been agreed upon. So this is how far we'll go this afternoon on non-disclosure agreements, still under your business and the law. So we are still looking at contracts. So we started last week talking about what you should know about contracts and why you should have a contract agreement for every of your transactions. So this week we've talked about one contract that you should sign with either business owners, partners, investors, employees, service providers, and the likes, people that you disclose information to. So you should have a non-disclosure agreement with them, and this is one way you can protect your business information, your trade secrets, and other confidential information within your business space. So join us next week for another series on your business and the law, and as we'll be looking at another aspect of the law of contract, or any other aspects that we feel that will be very helpful for you in your business. Do have a great new month and have a great day. Thank you.